great to meet another brother who is a student of Joe's and who knows Joe's work because like minds, you know. It's a pleasure to finally meet you.
Yeah, likewise. I've been following your work online for a while, so I like
Awesome.
everything you're doing.
Thanks, man. I try to keep it positive, you know, but there's a lot of
Yeah,
stuff happening. So you got to walk the line. You don't want to be someone who people are, what do they call it? Scrolling.
doom scrolling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you don't want to feed that fire, but you also want people to wake up and realize that it's within their power to make this world a better place, you know,
yeah.
and
You're
sometimes you got to point out the darkness for that.
you're informing.
I am indeed. You're a renowned and award-winning artist, my friend, and in more than one medium. You wanna talk a little bit about how you got into that?
Well, I always say my inciting incident started when I was 17, and it started with a heroic dose of mushrooms at a Grateful Dead concert.
That's a good
And
start.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person whose story starts that way. But, I didn't really know what I was doing, and it was like this fever dream,
Mm,
and I can now say, in hindsight, what I experienced was unity consciousness. So, just as like Hemingway was obsessed with hard living and Joyce, the journey of the artist, and Steinbeck, the migrant movement, I became obsessed with the nature of consciousness from a very early age. And I idolized my sister's boyfriend, who was about 10 years older than me. And I met him probably when I was 10 or 11. And he was an aspiring writer and he kept a journal. And he was the first guy I ever met who made, looking smart cool. He was super intelligent, athletic, good looking, like he had everything going for him. And I kind of like started keeping a journal because of him. And that was at age 17. And that was sort of the confluence of all these events, the mushrooms, wanting to keep a journal. And then I wanted to be a writer so bad. I started, as a good Irish Catholic, I started asking to be used as an instrument of peace. I started
right.
saying like the prayer of St. Francis. I forgot about that, for years.
Mm,
And then around 35, I was like, oh man, I used to ask to be used as an instrument of peace. And I started saying it again. And not a long time later, I wound up connecting with, Joe Dispenza
wow.
and becoming his editor for 6 years. So I worked on all his blogs, and then sort of 9 months into this director role that I faked my way into at a marketing agency, I was probably going to get fired because they were like, "You're the director. You have to like talk
Right.
to the,
Direct
direct the
things.
accounts and talk to the clients." I'm like, "No, they're evil. I don't want to talk to them."
Right.
So anyway, 9 months in, he asked me, if I would wanted to help him with becoming supernatural, and I literally said, "Watch how fucking fast I quit my job," and that was pretty much it. And I've been on this path, ever since. I mean, obviously wanting to be a writer since 17, didn't know
Mm,
how I was going to get there, but I just stayed tethered to this dream. And I
mm,
have a new work. I sent like hopefully the final draft to the publisher on Friday after a major rewrite,
mm.
called Dream Tethering: 13 Keys to Creating the Life of Your Dreams. So it's sort of a softball title for a new framework of consciousness.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. For everyone listening, when the reference to becoming supernatural is Dr. Joe Dispenza's third book that he put out a few years ago. A lot fantastic book. I highly recommend Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. It's the book that got me into Dr. Joe's work, which has changed my life immensely. You wouldn't even be hearing my voice if I did not find that work and settle into, you know, who I really am and not who I was trying to be, which I'm sure Tim can talk a little bit about that journey as well. That's I think the most magical thing about doing this kind of work. But Becoming Supernatural, great book. I highly recommend it. Some of the studies that were conducted and are featured in that book, I was actually at some of those intensives way back in the day. Which Tim, maybe you were shooting some of them. I don't know. Maybe I mean, were you ever on site shooting the retreats?
No, I wasn't.
Oh,
I
okay, okay.
wasn't filming, but I've gone to, like, my first one was in 2010,
Okay, okay, wow. So
and
you've been at it even longer than me. Wow.
I'm an OG. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was super catalytic. I mean, I went to it was in the Berkshires in Massachusetts at
Okay.
Kripalu, and my sisters took me, and I was just like jaw on the
Oh, I
floor
bet.
listening,
Oh man.
listening to this guy talk. And I'm like, this is what I've been trying to express my whole life. And he's
Mm,
wrapped this toolbox of language around these concepts of time and space and all this stuff. And I went with both my sisters, and one of them kept standing up and pacing back and forth. And he's
mm.
like, "You, I want to talk to you." She's like, "Oh my God, what I do?" He's like, "What's going on with you?" She said, "Oh, I hurt my back sleigh riding with
Oh,
my kid." And he was like, "Well, let's go find a room." And as it turns out, we're all hanging out, and he grew up one town over in New Jersey from where I grew up before I was born. So, as people from, New
yeah.
Jersey are like, "You went to Alfonso's Pizza? I went to Alfonso's Pizza." And he invited us to be, his guests for dinner that night. And we got on
Wow.
like we were, family. At one point he was like, "What's with the three of you?" And they're like, "Oh, we're siblings." He's like, "Oh yeah, that explains it." And I was trying to put my first work out into the world, so I was looking for a literary agent, and he's like, I can track down this person. This is kind of before like Facebook really
Yeah.
blew up and everybody was connected on it. But he couldn't find it, couldn't find the person, but we just stayed connected. And actually, my sister told me, about 10 years ago, when I left that day in 2010, I was like, I'm going to work for that guy someday. I'm going to write for that guy.
Wow.
And it took 5 years to, manifest. But I'd go
Mm.
back once a year, I'd see him, and I'd just always be like, we'd be great collaborators. And
Oh,
yeah,
but you know what? But before I forget to ask, so I was at a retreat once, and this was back when there was years ago they had teams, when the retreats were a little smaller, and one of the young men, really sweet guy, young guy, probably maybe a decade younger than me, big guy. He was having a lot of trouble meditating. He was in a lot of pain, because of an accident. I think it was a ski accident he had recently had. And one of the team leaders caught wind of it and told Dr. Joe. And of course, Dr. Joe comes from a chiropractor. He was a chiropractor for years. He had opened up, his own chiropractor business, and apparently he let the guy come in, did a little work on him. And when I talked to the guy afterwards, he was like, "Oh my God," he was like, it's fucking, it's gone. I'm like, there's no pain. He was like, I don't know what he did. But how was your sister? He actually did
she
that
she
to your.
actually never had that pain again.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
he's a true
crazy.
healer.
Yeah, he is for sure. I just thought I would ask because that caught my curiosity. I was like, oh, he put, because I always wonder what happens when he puts his hands up. He teaches us how to use our
Yeah.
hearts to allow that energy, that source energy through us. And we're not,
Hmm.
it's not really us doing it, but we're allowing that energy to come through. There's no I involved. It's just all,
Yeah.
you just become a channel. But it always fascinates me. Like, I wonder when he does it, how powerful it is, because he's so
Yeah.
in tune and aligned. But go
Yeah.
ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt your flow. What you were saying. So it took 5 years.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
guess I could tell the story of how it all came together, but um, I think it was like 2015. I went to this 4-day workshop in Carefree, Arizona. And the whole time I wanted to create two things. I wanted a full-time job because I was always freelancing and I needed the financial base to finish my first book. And I wanted a mentor. And, everybody's having these profound internal experiences. I'm beating myself up. I'm like, I'm a failure. Like
Yeah.
everybody else gets this and I don't get it. And so, I mean, I'm practically in tears, like just like, what the fuck? And, I was
Yeah.
like so desperately trying to heal these parts of myself and all this stuff. And
Mm,
so I wind up going, I go back to Seattle and I'm still on the tarmac and I open my phone and I get this message from this dude on LinkedIn who was at Microsoft for like 10 years. And he's like, "Hey, I'm going to this unicorn company. We need a writer. You should come along." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So then I take the light rail into Seattle and I run into the dude on the street corner. And
whoa.
he's like, "Man, you really got to apply to this job." So long story short, I get the job. I go to a coffee shop every day for 6 months, to finish my book. And right at exactly 6 months, I was like, "Holy shit, I think I have, a real book here." And right at that moment, I got laid off. And I was like,
Mm,
yes, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm just gonna work on, more drafts all winter. And I was so lit up. So it's like that elevated feeling in your
Oh yeah.
heart. I walked out of the building for the last time at that place, and I just said out loud, I'm like, what amazing things about to happen to me. And
Mm.
like 3 minutes later, I got a text from Dr. Joe's assistant and was like, hey, Dr. Joe's in the Middle East, but he'd love to talk to you about helping him with his blogs. And that was the start of all of it. And I was just like, holy shit. And then, when I started working on becoming supernatural, it was just a dream because he was like, sending me these lectures and I'm just walking around Seattle, like figuring
That's
out,
so cool, man.
trying how to say it best, and
Yeah.
it was a dream gig. And I mean, working with him for 6 years, like sometimes we'd be working on a blog and, I'd be going through like a breakup or something. And,
Mm.
he's like, what are we going to do a blog on today? And I'm like, oh, this is what I'm going through. And he's
Right.
like, all right, let's do that,
Yeah.
and then he would just lecture to me and I would help him turn it into a blog.
It's amazing how the universe allows for, I guess, muses was what they would call them,
Yeah.
inspiration,
Yep.
and how the things that are happening in other people's lives, you know, they can be mirrored, and also then you can gain perspective and insight as to how to breathe a little easier about what's happening, and I try to stay open to that. And, as long as I remain open to it and I keep my head up and I don't get kind of washed away by whatever the feeling is, whether it be anger, impatience, frustration, I see signs. I get the sign. I get the words I need at the time I need them somehow, some way,
Yeah.
and
It's
it's so
it's the
important.
transmutation of that energy.
Yeah.
It's like something that would take me down for 6 months when I was a
My
younger
God.
man. Now I can flip it in a day, in hours, and I always like when something, unfavorable happens, like I'm really going for this thing, it doesn't happen. Like I say out loud, like, show me what's better.
Yeah.
And something usually shows up in, 24 hours or a week or something like that. And I'm like, holy shit, thank God that was a roadblock, me not
Right.
getting that. So,
And that's that is what it means to keep the faith, right?
yeah,
There's been songs written about it. I can think of one by George Michael, which was a
yeah,
great song. But what does it mean to keep the faith? It means believing in something even when it's not there. I mean, it means knowing that it is there, which is a step above believing. And this is a great challenge for any human being walking the planet right now. But it's a challenge I think we all have to rise to if we're going to not only improve our lives, but create a better world for the children of our children, and that's keeping the faith is knowing something is going to work out even when all signs are telling you that it's not, right?
yeah. And I think faith can't exist without its symbiotic partner trust.
Mm,
So, if I had to distill my work into two pillars, it would be surrender and trust, because that's what I'm trying to master in this life, especially being an artist. It's a pathless path, as J.
I know
Krishnamurti
all about
said.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
So surrender and trust. I mean, man, people don't understand the pitfalls of being an artist and having your identity wrapped up in that persona, because of the external validation is part of your success equation as an artist. And there
100%.
are just endless pitfalls that you can fall into when that becomes the dichotomy you have with your measure of success. And, as an actor and a filmmaker, and a craftsman, an actor who really dedicated his life to becoming really good at the craft, at the art of acting, I can tell you that it's easy to get lost. And it's, I can only imagine, and I know being a writer and an art, it's the same set of challenges, and they're hard to transcend, man. They're
Yeah.
hard to, but it sounds like you are literally transcending them and doing it and manifesting your dreams. That's amazing to hear. So talk to me a little bit about trust and surrender and how this has become the pillar of your work.
Um, well, I you always live on the edge when you're an artist, and for years I had sort of one foot in the safety of the corporate world and then working on my art on the side. But then when you make that leap, I mean, you don't have a lot to stand on except surrender and trust. And that surrender and trust is believing in your power as a creator and a manifester to bring the dream into reality. And what is a dream? A dream is simply something you want to experience in a physical reality. So, you know, the central question of my new book, Dream Tethering, is: am I powerful enough um, to become the creator? Do I believe in myself enough? Am I powerful enough to become the creator, executor, and master of the dream? And that's what I've been, you know, dream tethering to all these years. You know, when I had this experience at 17, it was like, you know, it left this imprint on my consciousness, and it was a feeling. And I've been trying to express this for 34 years
Mm.
in shitty screenplays that never went anywhere,
I
in
know all about
multiple,
that. Yeah.
yeah, in multiple different books. You know, I have one book out, A Curious Year in the Great Vivarium Experiment. It's a very long, complicated title. The URL is just A Curious Year. But you know, it's like Joe's work and story. And when my
Mm.
mother passed away, I bought a one-way ticket to India. And I was just doing this gratitude and intention exercise, and
Mm.
everything unfolded out of it. I had enough money to travel for 4 months, and I traveled for 15 months. And at the end, I was like, I think I got to go home and, you know, start my life over. But I kept creating and manifesting this stuff. So in a way, this new book is sort of the formalized philosophy of what occurred in that narrative. And
Um,
actually, Joe endorsed that first book. I can't
that's right.
remember
He
what he
did.
said about it, but yeah.
That's right. He wrote the foreword.
Oh, no, he just wrote a little thing,
Oh,
but
that's right. Okay.
yeah, but so yeah.
That's that's amazing, man. You know, like it's amazing how your world, the universe brings things together for you
Hmm.
with where you're at. You know, like when as an actor, I had a lot of emotional blocks that I was running face first, painfully into. I mean, painfully is not the right word because you know the problem was I could not feel certain emotions. I was blocked off from them.
Yeah,
Which you know, how do you
existentially.
yeah, like in every way, like
Yeah,
crazy. Like if you were like diagnosing, like, well, not only is there's a physical you know, it's a physiological response to feeling vulnerable that is been conditioned in my body. That's the diagnosis. So I don't have to think about it subconsciously. The moment I feel vulnerable, bam, that feeling is gone. It's whisked away. I don't know where it went. I know I felt it for a millisecond, and now I feel empty and I feel nothing. You know, and that, you know, as an actor, when you're trying to play, and of course I'm attracted to the roles that are, you know, this guy's wearing a million broken hearts on his sleeve. Those are the roles I'm attracted to because my soul is like trying to guide me into liberation, into freedom, because it knows what's missing and I don't consciously. And so, you know, I had a great acting teacher who put me on a path, on a healing path. He was like, you have to find out why you built Fort Knox over your heart. And I was like, did I build Fort Knox? Yeah, I guess I
yeah,
did. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So there's the journey. You know what I mean? Like stuff. That was 2010, and first I had to figure out why. You know, I guess I didn't need to figure out why, but at the time that was all I knew. So that's how I started my path. And then by the time I started doing Joe's work, you know, the screenplays coming across my desk were like all about consciousness, all cutting edge. Like they were like, check this out, read the screenplay. It sold to Brad Pitt's Plan B for $1 million in 2004, and I was like, you know, and then I started working with directors who were actually consciousness oriented, and I was like, this is fucking so crazy. And
you
then
did shift you
yeah,
shifted your internal world, and really the external world's just a mirror to your internal world.
hmm,
But the trick is that the external environment, like I said in the first book, and I talk about a little bit in this, like the dream of the younger self, I use myself as the 17-year-old self, is like shooting a grappling hook out into the future. And if you're
hmm,
strong enough, focused enough, and determined enough to stay on the line, you're going to get there. But the environment is always going to try and knock you off. And the environment is simply a mirror to your internal environment. So it's really about you.
Yes, it is. Always. This is so
And
people
you
don't.
changed your frequency, and like you brought all these new opportunities to you.
Absolutely. And those opportunities are what spawned this podcast because then 2020 happened and there was no industry anymore. And so
Wow.
I was working with that same director, writer I was just talking about, and he was like, dude, we have to do something. We have to do something. I was like, yeah, everything. We can't even get a crew. We can't even rent a camera. I was like, we can't do anything. He was like, we're going to have to start a podcast. I was like, everyone is fucking starting a podcast. I was
Yeah.
like, we're going to start a podcast. He was like, yeah. And you're going to host it. I was like, what? Dude, I was like, he was like, I don't get in front of the camera, man. I was like, I don't know anything about shooting. He was like, I'll help you. We'll do it. I know people. Help you get guests on. He was like, you like Bashar? You like Daryl? I was like, I like him. I have a whole library of his teachings. He was like, Daryl's my friend. I was like, all right, we're doing this then.
Outstanding.
Daryl Anka, right? Bashar. He
Well,
channels Bashar.
you jumped into the unknown self.
Yeah.
And that's what we always have to be expanding into, because we know the known self,
Mm-hmm.
and we exist in limitation in the known self because it's safe and secure. But then, the whole goal of life, I think, is the expansion of consciousness, and that means, jumping into the unknown. I think, like, my mother was a really beautiful woman, but she was really kind of fearful, and I kind of grew up in that fear bubble. And, one time my sister said, I think you do all the things you do because you're like trying to swing the pendulum, of that
Yeah.
fear, like buying one-way tickets to, go volunteer in an orphanage in Tanzania,
Right.
to travel Southeast Asia for a year, moving to Mexico for love, which didn't exactly work out, but I gave it a shot.
Yeah. It was worth a shot.
Yeah. Got a lot of good stories. So it's
I'm
all
sure
about
you do.
narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like an adventure.
It was definitely an adventure. Yeah.
I wish we'll have to have a separate conversation about your time in Mexico.
Oh my
your
God.
love journey to Mexico.
Yeah.
That sounds like it was
There were
fun.
two broken hearts there.
I bet.
Yeah. So actually one of the essays, I think it's called, A Crisis of Faith in the Heart of the Chrysalis, or the Transformation Chamber. It's on my website, A Curious Year. It's the most recent one. I haven't written essays in forever, but I changed that whole concept, the transformation chamber, to bring it into this new book, because, we all go through the transformation chamber, and what better, metaphor is there than the chrysalis, where the caterpillar literally has to liquefy itself with its enzymes to become something new. And anytime we're in the transformation chamber, it sucks. It's super painful, but you just got to hold on to the walls with all your might and remember that this is designed to make you fly.
That's what they call, I have a big old phoenix tattooed on my back that was very much inspired by exactly what you just stated. It can be a lot like sitting in a fire,
Oh yeah.
trying to get to the bottom of things and why we are the way we are and how we can change that and make things easier, better, happier, more abundant in our life, but a lot of people are like you just mentioned, we inherit programs from our parents that are not always the most successful formulas for not only happiness, but wealth, health, you name it, right down the line. And that's very hard for people who are kind of still plugged into the matrix. And when I say that, I don't mean it in a derogatory way. I just mean people who really have not had enough time to stop and contemplate because they've been so busy surviving, and that's the bulk of this world, sadly. But it's something I talk about in my live streams and in my podcast all the time, is like, who's behind the wheel? Like, do you remember what you did this morning, or is it just another blur? Because it's exactly the same as what you did the day before, man. You know what I mean? Like people just assume consciousness, but it's not. It's subconscious. It's unconsciousness is what it is.
Yeah.
And that can lead to problems.
I talk quite a bit about that in the new book. Also, that inherited generational trauma, which I think is just unexamined energy. And you're talking about all of those wounds, and I from a young age, I used to write about my soul ache, and I was just always trying to figure out what it is. Well, the soul ache is actually the calling. And I think people who, out of fear, they don't pursue that. It's one of the greatest sources of anxiety and depression in our culture because they're
Mm.
stuck in something that was maybe, you know, maybe it's their parents' dream, or maybe it's society's thing or something like that. So, the soul ache is this pursuit, which I think at the end, what you realize is the soul ache is the imagined division between you and God or source or whatever. So it's like through the calling, you find your way back to wholeness, which is yourself.
Mm.
And then you've got all these I talk about like core wounds, which you were talking about as
Hmm.
well. And these come out of childhood. And I've like identified 7 of them. And then so it's like, there's the core wound, the surface emotion, the root fear, and the core belief. And every time that core wound gets triggered, you may revert to fighting with, your girlfriend like you were in 5th grade or
That's
something like
it.
that. Yeah.
That's how it comes out.
And that's the unconsciousness that needs to be examined.
That's right. Bruce Lipton told me a funny story. I always repeat it because it's so good. He was said, they always talk about the honeymoon phase,
Yeah.
and when that's over, Tommy's sitting there drinking his coffee. His wife comes down and she just says something to him, and he's not even sure what she said, but he just turns and snaps her. He's like, ah, and she's like, "Oh my God, I don't know you." And she's
Yeah.
right. She just met Tommy for the first time. Maybe she's been hanging out with Tom this whole time, but Tommy just showed his face,
Oh, wow. I
and,
love
and
that.
he's a different cat than the ideal self that we put on when we're in love. It's like all these amazing things happen in the body, and of course we're being our best self for that opposite, for our counterpart. We show up, we're present, we're dialed in. You know what I mean? It's like life takes on a magic, and
Yeah.
and then as that magic fades, we're less present, and then all of a sudden the subconscious programs, they come out, and then bam, we're our father or we're our mother. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
just like that. And this is what people don't understand, that that's what gets in the way of manifesting their dreams and their goals. And you can have all the vision boards you want, but if you're programmed for scarcity, and that is the underlying predominant feeling and thought process, then that vision board is not going to help you. You have to deprogram first, then your vision board can be effective. And that's something that I talk about a lot. Maybe one day I'll write about it as well.
Yeah. I think I think in those relationship situations, and it took me a really long time and a lot of pain to figure it out. But that moment when you get into the triggering space
Mm.
that is where like the masculine and the feminine heal each other.
Hmm.
But it has to be safe. And
Yeah.
I didn't feel safety in relationships for many years. And that can go back to a core wound of like a fear of intimacy or abandonment, etc.
That's right.
Um, so, I mean, you want to get to the next level, you got to heal all those things
Yeah.
that are keeping you. And, I have this whole new model of self-actualization called the Circletron in this new book. And it's like, every time you're about to get to the next level of the Circletron, which is the next level of self-actualization, which is a new level of consciousness, you're always going to come up against fear, trauma, or limited thinking. So you have to get over that. But beneath that are the core wounds. So
Yeah.
every time you're expanding, you're going to hit those same things in a bigger and greater context because you are
Hmm.
expanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I just I had to do this rewrite of the book, and I had to cut it from 87,000 words down to 60,000 words.
Wow.
And or sorry, yeah, 60,000 words. And I just worked up until Friday for 76 of the last 79 days. And in the beginning, I almost walked away from the book deal. I had a panic attack. I was like, I can't do this. They don't get, my ego was
Right.
butthurt. And it was like, but then I
It's
just,
always the ego. It's always
it is, they don't get me,
yeah.
But I just like put my head down, and talk about being in the transformation chamber. I had to come up against so many programs and core wounds. I
Hmm.
can't, not good enough. And what emerged, you know, is far better than what I actually handed in.
Yep.
And because I came up against all these core wounds and I was in the transformation chamber, it gave me the opportunity to write about them at a deeper level because I was
Nice.
right in the freaking heart of it. So
Yeah. Man, it's inspiring me. It's reminding me that I've been thinking about and talking about maybe sitting down and writing a book myself. And it's a challenge because you have to bear parts of yourself that you're not sure how your loved ones will accept
oh
hearing your
yeah.
truth about them.
Mhm.
That's a big one for me. That's kept me, which is an obvious fear that is keeping me from more of my potential. And just saying
Yeah.
it out loud really makes it, conscious and obvious for me because I don't think I've ever said that out loud. It's one of the things that has kept me from writing a book is that, parents are like my dad the other day said, I was with my kids and he's always like, man, your kids are really good. You got lucky. I was like, yeah,
Thank you, Dad.
I know. He's like, your brother, terrible. Fucking. He's like, but your kids, I'm like, yeah, got real lucky, Dad. But,
Yeah.
we were driving the other day and he said something, and something along the lines of like, well, I never hit you. And I was like, my jaw was on the ground. I was like, is that what you remember?
Yeah.
Like, and I honestly, I don't think they remember. I don't think he remembers. I mean, he used to beat the shit out of us, but
Yeah.
with his
And
belt.
that's not even to say the emotional daggers in the heart.
Oh, forget it. I mean, forget it. Then to top it all off, then he would fucking whip us with his belt, and then afterwards, that was the only time he was like really affectionate, really kind. Was when he felt so bad for beating the fucking shit out of us. You know what a mind fuck that is for. Yeah, I mean, like
Well,
it.
I would assume it's a repeated pattern, and that's
Yeah.
kind of how he learned and experienced
Oh,
love.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
He had it far worse. He reminded me of that as well, often.
Yeah.
And listen, I don't have anything. I don't have any ill will. I don't, I know my parents did absolute the best they had with what they were working with.
Yeah.
Period. I think every parent to a degree does, to the best of their conscious ability. But, I have no doubt that he was an improvement on his father and the way his father did things. I
Oh
have no
yeah.
doubt about it, and, I think I definitely, it's safe to say I'm also an improvement, but I'm also very conscious, of my programs and my reactions. And so
Yeah.
it's allowed me to be a more conscious father for sure.
Well, I think this, our generation, everything, because of the amount of information that is now in the world and everything, like we are the generation that can begin to heal
Hmm.
generational trauma by being aware of how these energetic patterns are passed on through time. And it's like my dad was actually a World War II Purple Heart and Bronze Star veteran,
Wow.
third day in Normandy. I'm a Martini baby. Surprise.
Wow. Wow. That's
Um,
amazing.
so I was always seeking this like emotional connection with him. I knew he loved me, but he was just like all those guys were shut down at that
Oh
level.
my God. Yeah. They saw
But
some
then I
horrible
see
shit.
like my sisters and brother and like the connection they have with their children, like, and the stuff they talk about. Like I would never bring this up to my parents. Granted, they were, you know,
Yeah.
grew up way
Bo-
back when, but
boomers. Yeah.
yeah,
Right. Wouldn't they be
yeah,
considered boomers? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I was also going to say with regard to your book though, instead of like thinking of it as a book and something you have to put out in the world, just start it as a creative exercise and
Yeah.
exploration and then just see what emerges.
Good call.
The
Yeah.
hardest part is birthing that first draft, and every first draft is a steaming pile of turds. But
Mm,
obviously, through it is the process.
right.
It's the creative process, and the creative process happens outside of time. Linear processes happen inside of time, but the
Right.
creative process is you connect into that string of information, that thread, and then it's not even you. There's just this information coming
Yeah.
through, and you barf it out on the page, and then the fun is, the rewriting process, which most people don't understand. But
I'm really good at rewriting and editing things that other people wrote. I often am asked to do it. And, I was even getting paid to, give screenplays treatment, which as an actor is funny because I became a producer and I was like, God, this is terrible. You know what I mean? Like, but fixing things, and making them better, it comes very easy and naturally to me. But birthing them and starting them has been more of a challenge. So, if I ever, I should say, when I do sit down, I'm going to give you a call,
Definitely.
and get your guidance, because you'd definitely be the person to talk to, I think, for like, do I, when I'm going to do do I just try to get one draft and then start to refine bit by bit, or do I, because of, or do you just get stuck trying to work over that first chapter for 2 months, and then, like what the most effective process is probably something that people
Yeah.
agree on. Yeah.
I urge people just to push through, get that first draft to a state that
Mm-hmm.
is coherent, but just keep pushing through it.
Yeah.
And I have a new book that maybe will be my next book after this about writing, and my process, and also using writing just as a tool for healing and self-discovery. But like, my idea is that the book is already there
Yeah.
in its entirety. You just have to create the right internal conditions to connect to it,
Tune into it.
and
Yeah.
pull it into being. I mean, Bob Dylan said in 1969 interview in Far Out magazine something to the extent of like, the songs were all there. If I didn't write them, somebody else would.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with the muse. Like when the muse speaks to you, like if I'm
Yeah.
in the shower, if I'm in the car, I'm like recording voice notes, like you gotta stop what you're doing when the muse gives you this gift. Otherwise,
Yep.
she moves on to someone, she gives this information to somebody else.
Yep.
Which is why, all ideas are swimming in the collective consciousness. And, you are working on something and somebody in Japan might be working on the same idea.
That
So it's
literally,
like,
it's a whole
yeah,
scientific concept. And it's funny because, a lot of people will call it the hundredth monkey effect,
yeah.
but there's also a scientific name for it, which I did a little video about. It's like a spontaneous like it's so funny that they tried to name this scientifically, but it was like spontaneous something. It's like, well, we know that the crossbow showed up in two parts of the world about the same time. You know what I mean? Like, and those two parts of the world at the time they had no interconnection. They had no way of communicating this. Of course, it's a weapon, and there's humanity in a nutshell for you, but you get the idea, like black powder, all these things. They started to show up in places of the world at the same time because they're in the consciousness, right? They're in the field that we're tuning into. And like you just said, all thoughts have been thought already. The game has been written. It's all the information is there. And, we're kind of just tuning into it. Which
And
is
then
amazing.
the art is, crafting it and distilling it through the lens of your own experience as a individual mirror of the universal. And, like I said, it's taken me 34 years to express, but also organize, this whole thing. And I don't know, do you know who Dr. Toby is in Joe's world?
Dr.
I don't know
Toby,
when the last time you were there, but he has like long hair, and he probably came onto the scene right before COVID when they started doing like the research with Dr. Hamel and stuff like that. But Toby brought Dr. Joe and UCSD together.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure that I've probably seen him, and I probably would know his face. Yeah.
Yeah. He I was kind of drifting through COVID, different places. I shut my life down in Seattle. I was in Texas working on a book with somebody. I was in Palm Beach, Florida. I was in Phoenix. I was in Dana Point. And then this kind of project opened up in Santa Cruz. So I went up to, Seattle. I shut my life down. My stuff's still in storage 5 years later. And when that project ended kind of quick, I was like, all right, where do I go? And I reached out to Toby, and he's like, come to Palm Springs, and he has a place here. And he's like, I got some work for you I need your help with. And when I was done with that, he said, you should just stay until you finish your next book.
Yeah.
So he granted me the opportunity to work on my own stuff for the first time in my life.
Nice.
And I thought it was going to take I thought this book was done 2 years ago, and there were all of these, like, I think in like a divine way, it's been kind of artificially held and then my agent passed away and blah, 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 blah. And
Mm.
I think I had to live a lot more before I could, express this. And so now it's like, here I am 4.5 years later. I'm about to, leave. It's like the perfect bookend to this. Like I'm about to leave Palm Springs. I never in a million years could have written the script that I would be in Palm Springs for 4.5 years. But
Yeah.
I mean, this is where it comes down to surrender and trust. Like I can make these huge decisions. Like I can't figure out what to do on a Friday night or what to order at a
Right. Right.
menu off a menu. But like I've just been like, all right, I'm gonna move to Mexico. I'm gonna go to South Africa. Like so now I'm like moving to Denver, and I don't really never been there once.
I was just
But
there a couple weeks ago.
oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
what'd you
for a
think of
Dr.
it?
Joe retreat.
Oh, you were.
I hadn't been to a retreat in probably about two years, a week long,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I know I needed it.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I practice the works daily. And I had been keeping up with that practice, but life moves pretty fast and it's easy to get swept away. So
Yeah.
I know I needed a week to revisit all those. And I went in like I didn't tell anyone this is my fifth or sixth week.
Yeah.
I went in Zen mind, beginner's mind, and I just applied because I know the people who get the most out of that are the ones who just come in, they're a clean slate. They just take everything in and they just go all out. They just go all
Yeah.
in with it, So that's what I approached it with, and man, it was amazing. It was like chicken soup for the soul times 1,000. You know how it is.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. So I was just in Denver.
I
And
would
that's
say
it.
and
Go
did
ahead.
you well, you were just there, but I
Yeah,
don't
I
know
was
if you got to
inside most
see
of
it.
the time, but
Okay.
yeah. So is it for this next project you're doing, or like what made you choose Denver?
I'm moving with a lady friend,
Nice.
and seeing what unfolds. And I was up in the mountains here about a month ago, and I was just kind of like, man, I miss the mountains.
Mm,
And it was like that little drop in this, field, and then this unfolded. And it was like the same thing when I was living in Santa Cruz. I was just kind of
hmm
like, man, I feel this calling to the desert. And then it was crazy. Like I wrote out exactly what I wanted,
Yeah.
and I was on this project, and I wasn't sure how I was, gonna get out and move to the next thing. And it was like the next day, boom, this shift happened, and
Yeah.
within 24 hours, I was going to the desert. And I feel like it's no coincidence that I wound up here to
Yeah.
write this book, because most of the information that came through came from this like desert palm canyon.
Yeah.
And the desert is a place of solitude and resilience. And every time I go for a walk, like I just put on headphones like yours, or headphones, and
Right.
I ask, the creative
Right.
communication problem I need solved. And I just put on tunes and get lost in the melody or the beat, and 100% of the time the information came in. Like I would be
hmm
at the end of this. There is no way I could ever written this book, like just sat down to write it.
Right.
I'd come to end of a chapter, and I'm like getting a little anxious, like what the hell's next? And I went up there, and it was just like boom, and I'm like,
Yep.
oh my god, it's coming. Yeah, it's just like right.
Yeah. Can we start talking and recording? So what you're talking about is having a means to access this divine intelligence,
Mhm.
and within that unbelievably beautiful source of intelligence, the same one that's giving your body life without a thought from you, it is the answers that you're seeking, or the questions that you need to be asking.
Mhm.
Both are there, and the question is that I have from people who are listening is, do you have a means in your everyday life where you have some type of ritual that allows you to tap into this? Because if you don't, you're missing out. You don't need to be an artist trying to solve a creative problem to enjoy the incredible benefits of having this kind of ritual or process in your life. Some people have, prayer. Some people use yoga. I use meditation and a lot of other things. But it's like most people don't it's not in their routine and they don't think about it, but then they wonder what's missing. And a lot of times this is what's missing for people. So I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to tell my listeners and remind them, don't wait till
Yeah.
tomorrow. Dr. Joe just said to us, he said, when you say, I'll start tomorrow, you're in a program. You're running a
Yeah.
program, and, I want to talk about generational trauma, and because people are still confused about how actually real and scientific this is. It's not woo woo. You can read studies about mice who were, freaking electroshocked every time they made a right turn or saw the color purple, and how the offspring of their offspring of their offspring would then avoid that turn and the color purple. And that's the way this works. So that, there are things in our lives that we have inherited, that we are steering clear of and we don't even know why. We don't know why we're so scared of them. And this is how generational trauma can kind of keep us inhibited and keep us from expanding and realizing maybe our dreams and what we're looking for.
Yeah, I have something to say on that, but I want to go back to what you were saying about the practice. I have a chapter in the book called The Practice as the Way. And the practice is how you carve out a path to God or your higher self or whatever. It's about getting into that trance state where the thinking brain shuts down. Most people are
Mm-hmm.
so busy and they are like pushing through the external world, but it's really like the greatest effect you have on the external world is becoming still and going into trance so you can receive that stream of information. Like you get it, but it's like I can't tell you how much information I've gotten just from meditation or my walks.
Yep.
um and so it's about carving that path out to that stream of information. As far as
Yes.
as far as generational trauma, I have this whole thing in the book. It's like if you imagine a DNA strand coming in, like a spiral of DNA. Like one time I just wrote up on my whiteboard, I was like, okay, it's my mom and dad's genetics. Mom, worry, fear; dad, survivor's guilt from World War II. So it's almost like this staircase that we come into life with. And our job is to deconstruct this staircase to create our own personal path back to source, back to whatever, back to our truest and highest timeline. But that's just not, it's not just about genetics. Because if you think about, like you are receiving all of your parents' kind of traumas and everything, because when they have these experiences in their life, it creates feelings. And then the end product of feelings in the environment is the chemistry.
Right.
And so we're actually coming into the life with this entire biological archive of our parents' biology and chemistry, not just the physical genetics, but the strand of energy that they have experienced, and that gets passed to us
Yeah.
through the chemistry and all that stuff. So we have to become so aware that we can actually alter that pattern, which is a biological and a chemical pattern,
Mm-hmm.
which is this pattern going forwards and backwards through time. You have to be the one to stop it and to create this new trajectory for your kids, for future generations, etc.
Absolutely. And that's it can be a Herculean task for,
Yeah.
because you're talking about essentially the body's biological addictions and tendencies, because
Mm-hmm.
you can, like, you can take road rage away from New York City, but you're not going to take the rage out of the person. He's going to find a reason wherever he goes at some point to do what he's been doing for 20, 20, 30 years. Like, those feelings become addictive, and people are addicted to the the hormones of stress, and they don't realize it. And so, like, I'll give you a perfect example. I was in New York City not so long ago. I'm walking down the street, right? Ambulance is coming. Ambulance pulls up to the. I'm at like an avenue and across like a T, right? The avenue is backed up because traffic is backed up, and it's got its siren going, and so people are trying to make room for this, and they do, right? They're all pulling off to the right, right? And this taxi driver in accordance with the law, and the ambulance's emergency has pulled up and off the road, to the side, and the front of his car has just entered into the crosswalk, and the ambulance goes by, and then the light turns and allows the pedestrians to cross, and this woman who just literally watched all of this happen within the span of 30 seconds walks up to and bangs on the hood of this taxi driver's car, and she's like, what are you doing? I was like, I just sat back. I was like, Jesus Christ. I was like, people will find any reason to rage and be upset. I mean, it's not like there was a big time gap between the ambulance and this guy getting out of the way he's supposed to. And it's not like he was blocking the crosswalk. Just the tip of his car was in there, and she banged on the hood, and I was like, oh my God, people will find any reason to have those same feelings of frustration, of emotion, if you're not conscious of it.
That's the conditioned self right there.
You know,
and I would imagine,
Go ahead.
I lived in New York, earlier.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I was like, I'm never leaving.
I was the same way.
3 or 4 in the morning, getting up for work, black bags under my eyes. And then, that lasted maybe 1.5 2 years. And I was just like, holy shit, man, this is hard living.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to that practice. If you don't have that practice to turn off that conditioned response and allow for other sources of information to come through, you're going to be in a spin cycle for a long time.
I keep telling people that, and some people hear me and they actually will make a change. But, a lot of people, sadly, they wait until something hits them in the face so hard that they have to change. Right. And just like Dr. Joe always says, it's like, you don't got to wait until you get a terminal diagnosis to get healthy. You don't got to wait until something upends your entire life to start doing the things that make you happy, and then people try, and then they come up against the habitual patterns that they are stuck in. And that's when it takes an act of will to learn to quiet the mind, have the discipline to keep it quiet, and then reprogram the mind with what you want to be, who you want to be, and what you want to show up. And I only know one way to do that. It's the way that I've learned through his work and through my own studies. But that's hard for people to hear, because that means that they have to be responsible. that life is not just happening to them. That this shitty existence they've carved out for themselves, and whatever discontent is in their life, they have to own up to their creation of it. And that's very hard for people who have been in lengthy marriages, for people who have been at a job that they really don't like, but it does pay them better than most people get. It's like you got to reconcile your actions with your reality. And most people would rather imagine that this is happening to them instead of the fact that they are in fact creating the conditions of their reality. So it's a big challenge, at least to begin. And once you begin, the universe will continue to show you the yellow brick road, but you got to start.
Yeah. I mean, when you go on this path, there's, it's in this whole model of the Circletron I have, but there's the pleasure point and the pain point. And that is actually when this, this 2-dimensional, it's concentric circles, this 2-dimensional map actually folds back in on itself, because it's actually a torus field. And you can hit the pleasure point, which is where life just becomes so unbearable. You have to, you surrender. Yeah. And that's when you begin the journey back to yourself. Or the pleasure point, which is a lot more easier, which is, alignment of the mind, body, and spirit in right thinking, right actions, right feeling. So I would suggest for most people to try and just go gentle on the pleasure point. The pain point, it's a real bitch.
Yeah, it's so much harder to do everything from that point. I find ways to challenge myself. I've over the last 10 years, I've become an avid I've always been a boxing fan, but boxing, learning to box, and then actually boxing people, that'll put you up against your survival programs. Because when you get hit in the face, when you get punched, it's usually fight or flight for people, and for me, it's
Yeah.
always been fight, so, but that's not what boxing is, right?
Yeah.
Boxing is a sport. You're not trying to defend your life or hurt the other person so he can't hurt you. You're trying to box. And so like, putting myself in that position over and over and having to overcome my ego, it's like, he got you, he just got you good. You better get him back, man. You can't let this aggression will not stand and all that. It's, you find ways to challenge yourself, even getting inked, which, I don't recommend anyone go get a tattoo just to experience what I'm saying, but it's like, that point, that fine line between pleasure and pain, and like, can you sit with it? Can you overcome it? Right?
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
I think Mike Tyson said everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the nose.
That's right. He famously said that. He's like, because they asked him, he said everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, and that's true. That is
Yeah.
true. What
And
happens?
I would imagine when you're boxing and you get hit pretty good and the ego gets bruised,
Oh yeah,
the feeling is to like rage and like go back, but then you kind of lose control. So you actually have to come back in. Is that right?
that's
And like,
absolutely true. And the
yeah.
people who
So
can't,
it's mastering the self.
you cannot sustain the emotion of rage for longer than, I would say, 25 seconds. When
Yeah.
you and so when fighters allow emotion in like that, they're done. I mean, if they don't finish the guy in that 30-second span, they're done. There's the muscle. It's so hard to come back from that. And so you learn that if you allow that, the fight's going to be over. And it's a great lesson to learn. It's like, how do you stay within yourself, not let your adrenaline carry you away, because your adrenaline's like, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Your body's mobilized, right? Everything is super slowed down, and it's like it's such a rush of, all the blood is in the extremities, and it does feel like you can do anything, and maybe you can do more than you can most of the time for about 20 seconds, and then it's
Yeah.
like you're you're done. So it's
Yeah.
it's a challenge, man. But
I mean,
yeah,
it doesn't matter kind of what domain you are in life. It's like, it's mastering the mind and the energy.
yep,
And, beneath the mind is the feeling and the emotions. And so, yeah, that sounds like I've always wanted to do some sort of like,
yeah,
Taekwondo or some shit like that to get into that feeling of sort of, I used to be like, I got a full ride to college, top 20 D1 school. And, after that, I didn't really
what
play, or
sport did you play?
I played soccer.
Oh, nice. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
after that, I didn't really have anything,
yeah.
for a while I ran, but I didn't have anything to get that kind of emotional aggression and, that
And that
physicality.
flow state you can
Yeah.
achieve.
Yeah. I started playing tennis about 4 years ago, and it
Nice.
became addicted to it. But it is, I mean, the tennis is like the ultimate, I can witness the split second that my mind changes, ball goes out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you have to commit to the shot and you have to be completely present to the present moment. And
Mm-hmm.
it's wild. I never really played tennis. I didn't know much about it. And I'm just like, oh my God, the level of mentalness in
Mm.
the game of tennis and just committing.
That's
It's
and that's why I love physical activities, and I try to, I force my kids to participate, even though they'd rather just sit on their video games, of course, like all these kids do today. But
yeah.
like if you don't challenge yourself, then you never come up against yourself, and in turn, you can start to experience like what has been called a flow state, which
Yeah.
is, when you look at someone's brain in a flow state, it's lit up like the Rockefeller Christmas tree. It's talking to the brain is communicating in ways that is not normally observed in everyday people doing everyday things, right?
Yeah.
And if you look at an athlete like Michael Jordan, who scored 76 points one game, and he's going like this because he
Yeah.
can't miss, and he doesn't know how he can't miss. And if you were to
Yeah.
look at his brain, during that game, it would be brighter than everyone else's on the court because he was just on fire. And in fact, the brain in that flow state is taking in millions of times of more information than it normally does. And the conscious mind is not processing it. The unconscious mind is, which is just
Yeah.
so fucking cool. And if you want to read a great book that actually talks about this state, I think it's called I want to say Stealing Fire. Do I?
Oh yeah, yeah. Stephen somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's about the ever elusive flow state, and if you've ever experienced it's pretty incredible, and you can achieve it. You don't need to be an athlete. You can achieve it. People who learn to channel, their brains look the same way. People who get into a flow state with their art,
Yeah.
athletes, there's all kinds of ways to achieve it. But man, it is a beautiful feeling.
I mean, that's what I think keeps the artist coming back,
Yeah.
to get into that state where you are completely gone and you're just, like when I'm in this space, somebody pointed this out recently when we were having a conversation. She's like, so how do you receive information? Where do you receive it? And I was like, I started thinking about it. And when I'm writing, I often kind of like cock my head to the right as if I'm listening through the left side of, my brain. And that is the organized side. So it's a very coherent stream of information. I'm just like listening to my higher self lecture this to me.
Yeah.
But I notice when I'm up in the canyon,
It's the left.
it's the right side, the creative side,
Right.
because it's completely open and it's like a torrent of information coming in. And I'm like scribbling this shit as fast as I can, and then I take that information and I bring it back to the computer. And then, but the whole brain state, the elusive whole brain state is what I think we're all seeking.
Another great book I recommend for anyone whose ears perked up at this conversation about brain hemispheres and flow states. It's called At Left Brain Turn Right. That's the name of the book. Check it out.
I've never heard that one.
I read it when I was still an actor and a filmmaker, and it was pretty unbelievable. I think I highlighted the whole book. I have a highlighting problem.
That's good. You want to be an active reader.
Oh man, that's amazing. So, what are you working on right now, brother? And what do you think about all this stuff that's like? So, I love taking my guests a little far out, because I have all kinds of different guests on, and they all have a different experience. But what have you been kind of paying? I mean, not that it matters what the United States government is doing with Congress, but like, have you ever seen a UFO, and what's your understanding of extraterrestrial, extra dimensional life, both here on this planet and in the infinite beyond?
Well, I think anybody that believes we're the only, alive thing in the universe is on crack.
Yeah.
I was just out in Paso Robles, the wine country, 3 weeks ago, and we were leaving, and there was like this really kind of orange star or something. Like, I was like, wow, that's kind of a weird star. And we were both watching, and all of a sudden it started glowing, and it was like getting bigger. And then it was like this, almost like how you'd see like the light around the moon. It was like this pulse of light that went around it. And we're just like, what the fuck are we looking at? And then it comes back to the center, and then it turns into like this comet thing, but it's not moving. And then 2 nights ago, me and my buddy went up to Joshua Tree, and we were just looking out there, and I'm like, look at that light. And it just, Joshua Tree, the high desert, there's a lot of weird stuff going on there. But, I think like, I think of, the universe or multiverse or whatever as stratas of consciousness, and consciousness are just vibrations of energy. So, I mean, I think that, who knows what's around us.
What's literally right here. Yeah.
Because we're seeing this much of the visible light spectrum. And over time, because we didn't need energy, we needed to survive.
Right.
We sort of blocked all of that stuff out. But, I feel like something big's coming. Disclosure's definitely coming. I'm on like a nerdy little WhatsApp group. One's Consciousness Club, the other's Disclosure.
Nice.
And
my kind of groups.
yeah, yeah, and these people are pretty deep involved. And I was just at Contact in the Desert.
Oh,
Do you know
nice,
that?
man. Nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was supposed to go. It was a year ago I was supposed to go, and something came up. I had, yeah, but I know the speakers. I know I've had a lot of them
yeah.
on my show, and I love the event. I was supposed to go. Well, that's cool, man. So you're definitely you're if you went to that event, then you are plugged in.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. I was outside. Chris Bledsoe, like, had like 300 people outside and like called in these things, you know, and
Amazing.
and I was just like, holy shit. And then I started just like sitting outside at night and watching the sky. And there's a lot of weird shit up there when you start
Yeah,
to pay attention to it. I mean, I love
totally.
just watching like the constellation move across the sky
Hmm.
over a month, but there's a lot of weird shit up there when you start looking.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think it's, I don't, there's like this whole thing about this alien ship coming to
Oh
Earth. I
God.
don't know if you heard about that project Blue Beam
Of
bullshit, but
course. Yeah. Of course. I was.
I don't think it's nefarious.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, I think there we are. Hopefully, I mean, it comes down to each of us to raise our consciousness.
Yeah.
But like what civilization that can move through star systems would want to interact with a warring, society?
Yeah. People are like,
So,
why haven't they landed yet? I'm like, because the monkeys will shoot them. What are you talking about? Why haven't?
yeah,
Because we're all
exactly.
armed. What do you, I mean, they don't even want to get close because the government is bringing them down for God's sakes. Just, like
Yeah,
people just don't know what's happened, and what's been happening and how hostile this race is until you kind of take a, zoom out and look at what we're doing. Look at where we have our weapons pointed. I mean, like,
yeah,
would you want to land here? Is this the vacation that you thought, let's be an ambassador? I don't know if
yeah,
we're ready for that yet, and then there's the whole problem with we've given our sovereignty away to a completely wayward and nefarious entity called government,
yeah,
and, you know, eh, obviously, if there is, and there is, advanced civilizations teeming with life, then they have to follow etiquette and protocols if they're going
hmm,
to be in some type of introductory phase with another race of beings. And
yeah,
naturally, you don't just show up, you would go to the leaders, and that's what has happened here. Sadly, our leaders are all corrupt and have kept it, a great secret. But this is, they don't want the disruption that comes with the revelation of this secret. And
yeah.
there's a lot of reasons for that I talk about all the time. So if you want to hear that, you'll have to check out my live streams and my other podcasts, because that's something I talk about a lot, because I'm trying to
Yeah,
get people to wake up, and realize that, hey, until we realize that we're in charge of us, then they're going to continue to meet with people like, these puppets in
yeah.
DC, and that's not going to go well for us.
I just heard this morning there was some congressman or something in this little interview, and he's like, "We definitely have a crash retrieval program."
Oh
But to hear
yeah,
it, of course we do. But to hear
yeah,
it from that level,
yeah. So
I mean,
starting
they're
to,
they're slowly leaking it out.
yes,
Towards what ends we'll see. But the whole disclosure thing, they were always, it wasn't about like ETs or anything. It was
no,
about us hiding the technology that
that's
we've
right.
we've gotten. And God knows, I mean, we could have technology that's 50, 100 years, advanced at this point,
Oh yeah,
and they want to keep that suppressed because once free energy gets out, game
yep.
over.
That's right. What
You
happens to
know?
the control systems? What
Yeah.
happened? If the true history of this species was to make its way into the general collective consciousness,
Hmm.
then religion, which is 5 billion people on this planet identify with an organized religion, everything would have to realign itself with this new understanding, and
Hmm.
and the energy, the technology would free us from the global stranglehold that the central banks and their industries have on us. And this is why it's the biggest and best kept secret uh,
Yeah.
on the planet, the most guarded, because you're talking about hundreds of trillions of dollars over the course of decades and centuries. So yeah,
Yeah.
man. But
I mean,
Tim, go ahead.
well, I was just going to add one more thing. If that control system dissolves and we have free energy and all that stuff, I mean, I call it Homo Lumen in the new
Hmm.
book. Like we're a threshold species right now. Whether, I believe we'll make it, but we're between Homo sapien and Homo Lumen.
Yeah.
And Homo Lumen is awakening. I mean, in a very simplified way, we could say it's awakening to Christ consciousness.
Yep.
And it's not about Jesus the man, it's about his consciousness that he said, you too shall do more and better and stuff like that. So I'm I think we're in the birthing canal, but I'm an optimist.
Yeah.
And I think what a wild time to be incarnated.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think we got a shot at it.
Yeah.
And I don't think it needs to be as messy as everyone forecasts, but at the same time, I cannot underestimate the level of, ignorance and willingness to just abdicate any say in what's happening because they have conditioned that. And so many people around the world, it's just like, well, what am I going to do? I'm just one person, and they get everyone to think like that. And then the fucking world never changes, sadly.
Yeah.
But,
change your consciousness.
That's right. Change, start right here and watch how things just change in front of you, around you.
Yeah.
It's a great experiment.
I've been observing that, people who are, the old systems are crumbling, and people who are fighting to, prop up this system and keep it going, they're having a real hard time. But the people who are creating the new world, who are, bringing the light in, like doors are opening for them that had never been open before. And in this moment of history, I could do a whole preamble about it, but the very simplistic thing is, there's more energy coming into the earth, and whoever you are being is being amplified. So do you want to choose love or fear? Because that's going to be amplified.
I love that. It's so true, and it's a question you can ask yourself regarding most of the decisions that you're making during the day, and where your thoughts coming from, a place of insecurity and scarcity and fear, or a place of love and trust and faith, but Tim, tell everyone where they can follow you and find you if they want to keep up with you. I know you have a YouTube channel. I know you're on Instagram and
on all of them, I'm the real Tim Shields. Mostly it's TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. I just started, I'm on the 21st episode of a new podcast called the Inciting Incident.
Nice.
And last week was Rick Allen from Def Leppard, which is a pretty epic story. I never really listened to him, but he lost his arm.
Yeah, that's right.
At 21 and stuff like that. And find me, sign up for my newsletter at the Real Tim Shields to keep up with, the book and everything like that. I'm pretty excited about it, and pleasantly surprised. My ego, although it was bruised, my soul is pleasantly surprised at, the North Star that I was following. So
that's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Listen, for everyone who's listening on Spotify or iTunes, if you enjoyed this, please share it, send it to a loved one who you think would be great if they listen to it. Write us a review. We're trying to grow our channel and our subscribership. If you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Please share this podcast. If you want to support me and all the work that I'm doing with my team and all the research we do, we have a Patreon page. Please check that out. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, because, like 60-70% of people listening forget to subscribe. So you won't miss anything. Make sure you hit the alerts button. But Tim, I'm so glad we had this conversation, man. It's been great for me to talk to you and listen to. I feel lifted having just had this conversation, and I'm sure everyone who listened to it feels the same.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the time, and I'm glad we finally got to connect. I've been following you for a long time, and I think we actually met at a Dispenza workshop.
Yeah, I feel like we did.
But reconnect. We can say reconnect. So
absolutely, man. It's been awesome. Listen, I really I may reach out to you, when I'm gonna sit down and get get cracking on this book. So I appreciate that.
I'll shoot you my number on Instagram or something like that.
Awesome, bro. Sounds good.
Yeah.